Start with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Stephen Miller, founder of America First Legal and former White House senior policy advisor. Gang, I just want to let you know when Donald Trump starts to talk, we'll dip into that and then come back to you. So hang on if we have to go to Trump quickly. But Congresswoman, this is an incredible moment where Americans will juxtapose Donald Trump there with Greg Abbott, who has done an incredible amount of work securing the border by himself, not only without the cooperation from the federal government, but the federal government is suing him because he's trying to do the job that the federal government is not doing. He's been very successful slowing the migrant surge, which is moving west to Arizona and California. But that juxtaposition is borne out by the figures that clearly show when Donald Trump was president, you had smaller migration flow. When Biden took over, it boomed like crazy and the whole country's suffering.
That's right, David. Well, all of America knows who's to blame for the wide open border that's brought over 10 million illegal aliens into our country, and that is the Biden administration. That's why I led the effort in the House to impeach Secretary Mayorkas, and we're waiting to find out when Senator Chuck Schumer is going to hold the Senate trial for those impeachment articles. But we're so thankful that President Trump is down at the border today, showing that he cares about states like Texas and their right to defend themselves against an invasion. And that is exactly what's happening to Texas, but it's happening to every state across the country because of the Biden administration. And we also have to point out that Joe Biden did not say he would go to the border until after President Trump already announced his trip there today. And then it was Joe Biden who followed President Trump. This is the #1 issue across America. It's hurting Democrats because all of America is hurting from the illegal invasion that has brought an onslaught of people into our country and sadly and tragically murdered people like Laken Riley, the University of Georgia student that was murdered last week.
Stephen, you know, there have been so many insults to America's intelligence by this administration on a whole range of issues, economic issues, but particularly on the border. And it would be the ultimate insult if Joe Biden, who has created this migration crisis that we have virtually all over the country now, and of course, there are offshoots of that, like the fentanyl poisonings, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. But if he goes down the border and he's at a part of it where it is slowed to a trickle and claims credit for doing something that the Texans have done, what happens if that happens? Do you think Americans will know really what's going on there?
Yes, I think they will. And let me first say what a pleasure it is to be on with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who led the effort to impeach Mayorkas. And I think this is really a crucial moment for the United States Senate to make this a moral choice for every U.S. senator. If they try to table this impeachment or to do anything to shelter Mayorkas, every senator that so votes is an accessory, an accomplice to every single crime that is being committed by the illegal immigrants that Joe Biden is letting into this country. And the only words that I want to hear out of Joe Biden's mouth today are, please forgive me. Please forgive me, to every family who lost a loved one, especially including the family of Laken Riley, because of the illegals that I, Joe Biden, let into this country, knowing full well that innocent Americans would be murdered and beaten and assaulted in the most horrible ways imaginable. That is the only thing Joe Biden should say. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for what I have done to you and your families. But he won't say it because he has zero empathy for the lives and the families that he has destroyed, the dreams that he has shattered, the futures that he has snuffed out through his monstrous policy of supporting, aiding, and embedding this border invasion.
Well, Congresswoman, of course he's not going to say that, but he can't deny the figures. You have 8.5 million migrant encounters since he took office, and that does not include the estimate of 1.7 million gotaways. So the number is over 10 million. It was just a fraction of that during the Trump administration, primarily because of what Trump did and what Biden did right after he was inaugurated to turn that around. So, I mean, the numbers could not be clearer, could they?
That's right. The numbers don't lie. January was the 35th month in a row that the numbers kept exceeding even the highest month under President Trump's entire 4-year administration. There are so many illegal aliens in our country, it's going to take us years deporting them all. But that's why America is supporting President Trump. They know the president that secured the border. They know it was President Trump, and his border policies are the strongest border policies we've ever had. This is why Republicans in the House passed H.R. 2. This is the strongest border bill, and we look forward to seeing President Trump sign it into law when America elects him in November of 2024, and he comes into the White House in January of 2025. But Congress needs to fight harder here in Washington. We need to stop passing CRs, and we need to stop funding the Biden administration, whose border policies are anti-American, they're America last, and they put every other country in the world first. And then they force American taxpayers to pay for it. I totally agree with Stephen. He's absolutely right. The Biden administration, Joe Biden himself, has blood on his hands. Secretary Mayorkas has blood on his hands. And then Chuck Schumer and the Senate will have blood on their hands if they refuse to take up the trial in the Senate and for impeachment articles of Secretary Mayorkas.
Congresswoman, I want to stay with you for a second more on Georgia, what happened in your state with Laken Riley. I mean, the murder of Laken Riley has really put a face to a problem like no other face we've seen. There have been thousands and hundreds of thousands of faces who've suffered, but this one in particular from a perpetrator, allegedly a Venezuelan who came here illegally, went to New York, was released because of their no bail policy and because of their refusal to cooperate with ICE. The people are terribly fed up with all of this. We saw that happen when the mayor of Athens, Georgia, who believes in open immigration, he doesn't call his city a sanctuary city, but he might as well because it acts like that. And they have a sheriff who follows those policies as well. He caught hell when he tried to convince people that his city, he was bragging about the success that his city has had fighting crime, but that success, so-called, did not prevent Laken Riley from getting brutally murdered.
That's right. I graduated from the University of Georgia, and Athens, Georgia used to be a wonderful town. But now it's run by radical Democrats like the mayor of Athens that would rather protect illegal aliens and call them an Athens man instead of admit that this was a brutal killer that shouldn't be in our country in the first place. You know, I've called on our state legislatures while they're in session right now to consider not funding any city or county in the state of Georgia that wants to protect illegal aliens because they don't deserve the funding from the Georgia taxpayers. They don't deserve their hard-earned money if they're going to protect people that end up killing our Georgia citizens and our students when they're studying and pursuing their dreams, their American dreams when they're in college. Laken Riley was such a wonderful person. I enjoyed talking with her father and learning more about her life. We tried to remember her in a moment of silence this week here on the House floor. But Georgia, every single person in Georgia, and I think people across the country, are reeling at this horrific murder of Laken Riley, and it should have never happened.
Stephen, I just want to play a little bit from the mayor, from the chief of police, John Williams. He's actually called the sheriff down there. He's sheriff of Athens, Georgia, and a couple of other towns in that area. When he was running for office, he said the following about whether he would cooperate with ICE. Roll tape.
It is not my intention when elected sheriff to cooperate with those detainers. That's not something we'll be doing. We won't be doing any type of roundups. We won't be attributing to that culture of fear.
Stephen, there was a reason why that Venezuelan illegal immigrant was in Athens, and that's the reason. A sheriff like that with a mayor like that.
Yes, a sheriff like that and a mayor like that and a president like the one that we have, a president who campaigned in support of sanctuary cities, a president who has used every single tool at his disposal, not to fight sanctuary cities, but to fight the state of Texas for trying to defend its border. A president who has weaponized law enforcement not to go after criminal aliens, but to go after conservative Christians and political dissidents. At every turn, Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and Democrat officials have done everything in their power to ease the pathway for criminal aliens to get into America, to stay into America, and to be released and reoffended. For example, ICE's own data shows, compared to the Trump years, Joe Biden has released an additional 200,000 illegal aliens with criminal records from our prisons and jails that were in custody that he could have removed but declined to remove because of his policy of non-enforcement. So again, these are all deaths that are attributable to Joe Biden.
Well,
and the
meanwhile,
Senate Democrats,
yeah,
and I'm looking at you, John Tester, if you side with Mayorkas in this impeachment, then you are an accessory to every one of these crimes.
well, you're both throwing down the gauntlet, but Congresswoman, there is concern by some people that the conversations going on between the president right now and Speaker Johnson might lead to something that would not be pleasing to those of us who want a strong border. Of course, they had H.R. 2 from the House. It was never brought to table by Senator Schumer. Then the Senate came in with their own version. Didn't even go to the House because it wasn't going to pass. Now Speaker Johnson and President Biden are talking. Does that concern you that they may come up with something that would not be acceptable to you?
Yes, it does concern me, and the conversation that concerns me the most is that our speaker would give in on our border security and trade it for $60 billion for Ukraine. This is a war that Americans don't care about. Poll after poll shows that Americans do not support funding a war in Ukraine. The only thing we support is peace for that country, and we support border security for America, our home, our homeland, and the country that we all love and American taxpayers pay for. That's the only border we should care about, and that's the only border that matters to Americans. I do not want to see our Speaker of the House, our Republican Speaker of the House, working with the president that has ripped our border wide open and has been the best business partner that the Mexican cartels have ever had in their lifetime, enriching them beyond their wildest dreams. The Speaker of the House needs to hold the line. That's what voters wanted a Republican majority for this Congress, and they expect us to do our job, not cave to a president that is failing America and is leading the attack on Texas and the American people.
One more question, Stephen, about voting. What is going to happen to the 10? We know that the reason why the border was open was to increase the voting rolls of the Democratic Party. I mean, clearly there was no other reason that I can think of for it. What about the move to turn 10 million mostly undocumented migrants into voters?
Well, let's be very clear. Joe Biden's first bill he sent to Congress was a bill to make all illegal aliens into citizens. The only reason that bill didn't become law is because they were one, maybe two votes short of getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate. If they had, they would have eliminated the filibuster and they would have passed it on a party line vote. And all of these illegal aliens would now be U.S. citizens, which means they can vote in our elections and they can sponsor all the relatives to come here and become citizens too. At the first opportunity they get, that's exactly what they will do. In the meantime, they vociferously oppose any effort to verify citizenship in American elections, and that is, of course, all by design.
Folks, could you hold on one second? Let's just listen to Donald Trump. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have sound right now, so we're going to have to leave it at that. Come back, and we'll give you as much of Donald Trump as we can possibly get. Congresswoman Stephen, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate you coming in today.